The Earth's core has broken down, so a crack team of scientists are sent deep underground to give it a jumpstart. Yes, that premise is as silly as it sounds, but hey, that doesn't mean it can't be entertaining, so grab a hot pocket and join us as we revisit the core. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is my very own DJ Qualls, David.
I couldn't think as slow as you as I tried.
You even quoted him.
I did.
Yes.
I pulled up the IMDb, and every single one of the top quotes for the first 10 is him. Something he says.
The D stands for David.
It's true. And I have thoughts on that.
David Jebediah Qualls.
Yep, you nailed it. You're like one step away from my social security number.
I don't know why I went with Jebediah. That was the first J name that came to my head that I thought was funny. Anyway,
There's
welcome everyone.
700 more J names.
I know, I could have went with James, Jim, yeah, John, Jack, like all the common ones, but no, Jebediah. So yes, welcome everyone to the movie podcast. We are working through a disaster movie season, and we did a bunch of going out into space to stop asteroid movies. This movie's the inverse of that, but plays very similar in that it's about a group on a ship going into the Earth towards the core of the Earth to try and save the world. Mainly to kickstart the core back into action because it's had a bit of a rough time. That's the basic premise. I will say,
still technically falls under the title of Big Angry Rock.
I guess. I feel like the core's got more going on than just being a rock, but I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying. Technically,
not really, but technically.
Yeah. The inner core, at the very least. Obviously, the outer core, as we learn about in the film, is more liquidy.
This movie is very educational. You can learn a lot from it.
I learned, there's a demonstration with a peach at one point. They just completely nailed it for me. I got it.
I have so many words about that.
Yeah. We got so much to talk about. So yeah, this is a 2003 movie, which I did see in theaters around the age of 13 or 14, depending on what part of the year it came out in. And I remember, I think, enjoying it well enough for what it was at the time, but I was obviously very young. I hadn't seen it in 20 plus years at this point, because this movie is 22 years old, which makes me feel ancient, honestly.
Yep.
Because the movie from the 2000s still feels relatively new to me. But here we are. That said, though, every single time they pull out their little Nokia phone, I'm like, oh yeah, it is a while ago. it's a little bit far back now.
Yeah. There are many aspects to this that date it. There's very many, it's from mostly the technology aspects and stuff like that, but there's little things as well that they throw out there that's like, that doesn't seem realistic anymore.
Yeah, it feels like technology was ever evolving very quickly throughout a couple of decades, and then it kind of stalled once we got to the 2010s, and things have, there's been slight advancement, but things look pretty much the same. Nothing's really changed that much in the grand scheme of things. At least physically, anyway. Online platforms are maybe a slightly different kettle of fish.
I was going to say, I think the only thing that you could theoretically have in a movie that would absolutely date it separately is someone saying oh, well, we're still decades away from AI. If someone says that, you're like, okay, well, maybe things have changed a little.
Or they just call something Twitter.
That's true. Yeah. Tiny things.
Yeah, watch the first Iron Man. He brings up his MySpace page. That's
watch the second Iron Man. He praises Elon Musk.
That's not the only movie guilty of that, actually. There's a lot of things that have dated a little bit because of that. Some modern Trek included. So anyway, The Core is a disaster movie about restarting the Earth's core. It's really that simple, but it plays out like a lot of the space movies in that it's a group of characters on a ship. It's very dangerous. Conditions are very harsh. Not all of them are going to make it. There's your movie. There you go. And you'd seen this before as well. I seem to recall.
Yeah, I said that at the end of the Armageddon review. Armageddon, I was very harsh on for a lot of reasons. Not all of which are shared with this movie, but many of which are. And going into this was a guilty pleasure of mine. This is something that I remembered. I knew it wasn't great, going into it. I don't remember it being a fantastic movie, but I do remember it being a lot of fun. And so I was really kind of trying to point out little things where it's different from Armageddon to try to at least save a little bit of credibility of why I think it's okay and Armageddon isn't.
Well, I'll give you one thing that's definitely better than Armageddon, like right off the bat, is that I was really enjoying how these shots in this movie would last longer than 2 seconds. Like, it actually was paced, editing-wise, like a real film. So, you know, not high art by any means, but hey, when you sit through Armageddon and you're actively getting annoyed at how quickly it's cutting constantly the entire time, the comparison is actually quite kind to this. But this movie is full of stupid nonsense science, of course. It's full of some weird... I'll say it right now, as much as it's fun to poke at the DJ Qualls factor of this movie, every single time he says something about computers or hacking, I was groaning within an inch of my life. Right?
What? You don't... I swear to God. What's that? What's the movie it's from? I can't remember, but it's like... You ever surf the wave in cyberspace or something like that? It's somewhere. It's right out of this movie. It's exactly how he talks.
It's the same kind of vibe, yeah. So if anything, the thing that dates this movie the most is the way characters talk about the internet. It's like, I feel like 2003 is too late for this, but I guess Hollywood was still saying this stupid shit.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely like I am firmly placed that the moment that the internet stopped being enjoyable, the moment it was commercialized, is like 2007, 2008. Like, it's right in that period. So 2003 was still the period where like anything could happen. The internet's still this open frontier where like we could do cool things. And then Google bought YouTube and everything just sucks.
Things have just gotten shittier since.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's got that going on. In terms of cast, you know, we have Aaron Eckhart in here in the lead role. We got Hilary Swank. We got Delroy Lindo. We have a lot of recognizable faces, actually, because we also have what's his face, Stanley Tucci here with his dyed white hair. We got him going. Yeah.
No, I got nothing more on him. He's
okay.
Just Stanley Tucci's I every time I see Stanley Tucci in a movie, I always think like this is just barely at A level. I still consider Stanley Tucci to be like a more top actor, someone who like takes only like better roles, but then every time I see him it's in like a C tier movie, so I maybe have to like reevaluate. It's the same way I think of what's his name from Alien, Ian Holm, is he the one?
Oh sure, yeah,
it's the same way I think of him, where like I imagine him as being this like top tier only in great movies actor, but he's not. Yeah,
but at least he's an alien. I mean, what was Stanley Tucci got at that caliber? I don't know if he does have anything.
I think he does. I'm pretty sure he won an Academy Award at some point, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, I mean, maybe he did, but I like in terms of like something I've seen, I can't think of anything.
Fair enough.
You know, he's in a lot of crud or mediocrity, I would say. Anyway, I guess we'll just get into things. David, upon this viewing, what did you think of The Core?
Positives. I still think the characters are very good. I think they do a good job of establishing everyone's interactions and their motivations and all that. And I enjoyed being around them. I think it does a good job of explaining the problem and then like sticking to it. Even if it is all a bunch of science gobbledygook, this movie loves the piece of paper with the pencil through it method of explaining. It will take whatever problem you have and boil it down to, it's like throwing stones in a pond. It's like you heat up this peach and it does this. It will take anything you have and put it into simple terms. And at a certain point, it gets laughable how often it does it, but I enjoy it regardless. I enjoy whenever we have those moments. Downsides, DJ Qualls as just existing. Yeah, that's a problem. It's absolute, like... not to spoil too much of anything, but there's no real reason to say that his character doesn't survive when you see him. He more or less ends the movie, and it's like ends it on the worst line. Like, it's the dumbest possible. Like, all of his lines suck, but they chose him to end the movie, and it also sucks. And then something new on this go around that I noticed before, but I didn't realize just how bad it was. The special effects kind of suck. they really don't hold up here.
There's some hit and miss, but I will say, I did notice the Challenger looking a bit phony in the big sequence with the Challenger ship. Well, it's the space shuttle. I don't know if it's like specifically the Challenger, but
it's the Endeavor. But yeah,
it's the Endeavor. Okay, yeah. No, I think I want to say, because I had the DVD back in the day, I want to say there was like interviews or with them talking, because the Challenger disaster happened kind of like not too far away from this movie.
I feel like that was 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, but I think they talked to like people at NASA that sort of like were involved with that or something.
Okay.
I remember them being like consultants. I remember them talking about it and wanting to pay respects to it or something. There was something related to it. Anyway, doesn't matter. But that had that kind of fake look to it. The thing that caught me though, right, and it's actually hard to explain what this is before we get into proper spoilers and like can explain the context. Oh. But I'll just say there's like a base with another project, and it only cuts to it a couple times. But the entire thing is CG, and it just has that, oh, this looks like it's from like a video game, this like area kind of look to it. And it just, it's really stuck out. It's like a couple of times you see it, but every time it cut to it, I'm like, oh, this feels really bad, this CG. At least when they're in like, you know, the core, it's kind of like, well, it's hard to say what any of this would actually look like. So you get a little bit of leeway of it just being all kind of like a bunch of orange waves or whatever.
It's effectively sci-fi. Absolutely. Though, just want to bring up, I Googled it. Columbia. There was a Columbia disaster. And that was in early 2003.
Where am I getting Challenger from?
Challenger was the other one that had a disaster back in the 80s.
Oh, so I'm conflating two things. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not crazy then. Like, the word's coming from somewhere. Yeah. Okay, there was one near the movie though, so I wasn't speaking nonsense. Okay, fair enough. All right, so cool. Yeah, effects are dodgy in places. I will say there's at least a couple of the big disastery scenes where stuff's happening. Well, there's some very obvious CG. I did appreciate that it went into close-ups where they were clearly still doing miniatures, and I was like, oh, that sticks out in a good way, because I feel like movies like just a few years later would stop doing that, and it would just be relying on the CG completely. So at least going in for the close-ups made it feel a bit more real when you were getting a little bit more out of it. So I'll say that at the very least.
Yeah. No, I mean, just I kind of stopped at that point, but I still like the movie. I come out of this and I recognize it is not a good movie in the sense of it's, you know, scientifically accurate or it's like trying to take itself serious or anything like that. It's dumb, but it knows it's dumb. It knows that this is something that is absolutely a dumb concept for the movie, but it is having fun with it. And to separate it out from Armageddon, it doesn't feel... What's the best word for it? It doesn't feel so self-serious either. Armageddon, as much as it was like playful and they were having like all this fun with it, whatever, when it came to the moments of like destruction and when it came to like the big emotional beats and stuff like that, I feel like Armageddon took itself a lot more serious than this one did. This one has emotional acting. I still think the actress does a great job where it needs to happen, but it also feels like it's so much more laid back and so much more of like, yeah, you know, we're not going for this big thing. We're going for, well, honestly, this feels like one that was designed for the DVD sales. I don't know how it did, but it felt like it was like, yeah, we may not do great in theaters, but this is absolutely something that's going to do well on the aftermarket.
Yeah, I think, revisiting it now, I mean, my feelings on it are kind of like, it's not a good movie. I think it's less offensive to me from a quality perspective than Armageddon is. I think it is better than Armageddon for a few technical reasons, and just the sort of thing where some characters are like kind of cliched to a point where I'm kind of rolling my eyes a little bit, but no one is pissing me off with just yelling things the way that characters do in Armageddon, or I should just say Michael Bay movies in general is really what I'm saying there. So it's got that going for it, but it is full of absolute dumb stuff. It's full of just nonsense, and it kind of feels like they put themselves into these like weird corners where they have to like then explain a way out of it. And it just always feels like, yeah, there's some scientific miracle to pull out of a bag to get them out of this next jam, you know, this next predicament they're in. And I don't know if any of those feel all that satisfying in and of itself, but it's not too badly paced. The score's okay. I feel like the music, you know, it's got like a little theme that it uses from time to time. Yeah. So it's got that. It does have a decent cast who are maybe elevating it a little bit. and it's not taking itself too seriously. I'll agree with that. But having said that, though, I absolutely think there is a ceiling here, and it's like, you know, it's not anything more than a guilty pleasure decent movie. Anything above that, I think, would be absolutely overselling anything in this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I as much as I like the character performances and stuff like that, and even the writing of the characters, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh no, this is a character drama. This is something where like you can really get into how do people react to each other when they're deep down in the Earth's core and they have the weight of the world's on their shoulder. No, it's dumb. They're all dumb. I'm fine with that though. They're supposed to be dumb.
Yeah, you know, because I mean the main character does not have an arc. Right. So that's just first up. There's no arc for the main character. There's like Hilary Swank they try and kind of do one with her, but honestly, it's so half-assed that I don't even think I would say they effectively
Stanley Tucci has a definitive arc. Hilary Swank has a half arc. Everyone else is just set dressing to get them to do the thing.
Yes. But even Stanley Tucci's, though, is kind of a little bit like, just, you know, he's a bit of a dick. Oh, he's a bit more self-aware. Like that's his arc. That's his arc. Yeah,
I'm not saying it's a good arc, but he has an arc.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, and basically the way that it gets a lot of disastery scenes in here, aside for their trip itself, is much like the movies with like the meteor showers in Armageddon, or like a little one hitting in Meteor or Deep Impact. There'll be like random events because of what's happening with the core throughout Earth, so we get like a variety of different things that they claim is affected because the magnetic field around Earth is starting to go.
Well, you get a double whammy. You get the stuff on the surface, which is like the disastery stuff. You get the like big set pieces and whatnot. But then for our cast, the issues that come up to them come from the idea that we don't technically know the exact stuff about what the mantle and the core is made up of, and as far as I'm aware, that is still true. We have very solid guesses, but not actual definitive answers. Which makes sense to me, because the question did pop in my head, like, how could we possibly really know this? Like, you know, like, I get why we can maybe send down, like, waves and things and maybe get some guesses and guesstimates and whatnot, but like, fundamentally, we cannot just go down and check, at least not yet. Maybe one day they'll build this stupid ship they've got in here and we'll have a look-see, but, like, it's not an exact science by any stretch at this point. I mean, I'm still holding out that it's going to be Hollow Earth, Godzilla, Monster, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's absolutely my guess. The other part that I need to bring up here is I no shade. This is obviously like out beforehand, but I got such a kick out of Unobtainium, and I am assuming that this is in the Avatar universe now.
I did pop when someone said Unobtainium. I did know though that it wasn't a word that was made up for Avatar. It's kind of like a catch-all fictional like word for a substance. It's like the Acme Corporation. It's like, we just need something that's gonna work here that's generic enough that no one can sue. Unobtainium. There you go. Pretty much. So yes, Unobtainium does feature in this. Here's the thing that I want to point out though, and it's not in the biggest sin of the movie science, but it's the stuff that was really sticking out to me of like what. Like, you're not even going to give me a half-assed explanation as to how this is, no matter where they are, right? Mantle, under the crust, and the outer core, wherever they are. We've got communication with Houston the entire time. Like, and there's never even, and not only that, we have like a visual on screen of what looks like the entire core, and like they can see it's reacting to things, and I'm like, where is this like perfect like live footage coming from? Like, it's such a bunch of nonsense. No, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and just assume it's the same explanation from Armageddon. They're bouncing off a Russian satellite. There you go. Done. I don't think that works, David. It's a near Earth Russian satellite. It's an under the ground Russian satellite. I don't know. Make it honest to God. This movie is so unserious that I feel like. You're right, they don't give a half-assed explanation, but if they said even one line about it, it would be perfectly in line with this movie. Like, they don't need to explain anything. The entire idea of like, okay, in real life, we have only ever managed to drill, I think he said like 7 miles down with like a 2-inch drill. And I think that's right. I think that is something that actually happened.
And then for this, they just make up, here's how we're going to do it. And they don't try to explain beyond like, again, that's sort of hand wavy, equating it to real life. They're like, oh, you know how you can use ultrasounds to break up kidney stones? Well, it turns out you can use gigasounds to break up real stones. There you go. That's how we get into the Earth.
And it is worth mentioning, if this wasn't technically a disaster movie, this would be an ace movie. This would be a sci-fi movie, because it is. And technically, all the movies we've done this season so far, to some extent, are at least a little bit sci-fi, if not outright sci-fi. But they fall into disaster movies, and it belongs on Collector's Cut because of that. But science fiction does at least imply some attempt at like trying to make it fit into what could be possible. I don't know if this quite falls into that. Fantasy might even be a better descriptor.
Right. It's right on that verge, because it's the idea that they, like I said, they keep on relating it to something real. They keep on mentioning like, here is what's real. And then my favorite, honestly, it's one of my favorite lines in the movie, just because of how it's said, is Aaron Eckhart goes on this whole long thing about like, we cannot get into the mantle. It is physically impossible. There is no possible way to do this. And then it cuts to Stanley Tucci and he goes, but what if we could? And then the rest of the movie happens. Like, that's what makes it science fiction. It's just we understand. None of this makes sense. But what if we could?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the core. It's dumb. It's full of, the characters. They're a little one note, of course. They've got their little jokes. Even down to Aaron Eckhart, who's kind of the straight leading man, if you will. Even he kind of opens with a couple of jokes where, like, it does that thing that even Meteor started with, where a couple of like government officials come to pick him up and say, "Hey, your presence is requested. Here's our badge, he's official business." And they pull him out of his university lecture because he's a professor. And they're like, "Hey, we can't tell you where we're taking you. You've got higher security clearance than us." And he's like, "I've got security clearance?" It's like, "Yes, we're just here to take you to your I don't know, post or whatever." I can't remember what they said. His jet. And he's like, "I have a jet?" And it's like, it's played for laughs. Like they're trying to make this entertaining as opposed to something that's going for serious drama. I will say, what I forgot about this movie, because I remembered the general gist of where it went. I remembered a lot of the bigger, like, scenes. I did not remember that it kind of starts with a series of random little incidents, and like these moments were kind of like these weird deja vu moments. Like the movie opens on this business guy who's like, "Let's go make $30 million," and he's like, fist pumping his like colleagues, and I'm like, what is this shit? What's this got to do with it? And then obviously things play out, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't remember any of this happening, but all right, this is how we're starting.
Yeah, I mean, it's without spoiling exactly what it is. I didn't remember the first thing that happened. I did remember the second thing, because there's just, I we'll get to it, but just the way that they caused the scene to happen, I just imagine the crew had a ton of fun making that scene. Like, it's just, it's hilarious in its own right.
Yeah, but okay, I think we'll get the spoiler warning then, so we can start digging into the movie.
I mean, just to make it clear, it is 2 hours and 15 minutes long. Like, it's not, it's not an hour and a half. It's not like a super brisk pace. I think the pacing is good though. And if you haven't seen it, I would suggest giving it a watch. Don't expect high art, but I do think it is worth at least checking out for the sake of, wow, all right, that was something.
I will throw on an extra line to that. Give it a watch if you want a dumb disaster movie. If you want a good movie, do not watch it. Under no circumstance does it fit that.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. All right, spoilers for the core. You have been warned. So the movie, well, first of all, the Paramount logo, the camera sort of swoops in and goes down beneath the Paramount mountain to reveal the title, the core. It's like dan 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 dan. It's
got a big damn theme. I like it, as it may not be the most iconic theme, but whenever it's playing, it's like, no, all right, they got the message. They need to make this feel big.
I mean, I remember, I can hum it, so I mean, that's something at least. But yeah, the movie opens on this kind of bro business guy who's like fist pumping his colleagues, and let's go make $30 million, and they walk into the meeting. But then he just collapses and dies in front of everyone. And then we go outside and we see, like, one or two other people have collapsed and died. Maybe one person driving a car's crashed it because they've died. And this is what leads us to going to Aaron Eckhart, and when they pull him in, and he's not just him, it's his friend, a colleague named Serge, who's also a scientist in a slightly different field. And they're taken to this top secret location. Richard Jenkins is in the movie. He's the military guy in this movie. And he's like, hey, all these dead bodies, right? And because they do this thing where it's like a top-down shot as they walk in the room, and they're just kind of like chatting and catching up because they know each other. And then he leans against the table and an arm drops down and like, holy shit, this room's full of dead bodies. What the hell is this? And Richard Jenkins is like, hey, any theories on what made all these people drop dead? And he's like, what, they all dropped dead at the same time? Yep, to the second. And all in the same location within a block radius. Yep, all the same location. And then Aaron Eckhart's looking around. He's like, they all had pacemakers. And he's like, yeah, we knew that. I'm impressed though. It took you less than a minute to get that. What was the clue? You didn't even look at the bodies. He's like, oh, me and him are the clues. Like, why would you ask us in here if it wasn't to do with our expertise?
And he says what the fields are. That he's a geologist and Serge is, I think, in like high energy weapons or something like that. But I think that's. I'm going to keep gushing over this movie in the places where I can. I think that's smart exposition. Like, I think that it is smart in the way of like, yes, we saw him doing a class, we saw him doing a college thing, but it's a good way to get Sergei's thing. And it's also good to show that Aaron Eckhart's fast on his feet. He's able to like come up with this quickly here, and he's good at these problem solving measures.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this movie. I don't know what to say.
All right, okay. I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm not. I guess I'm just don't have the fondness for it that you do.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but then Richard Jenkins like, could this have been a weapon? Could like, the enemy? And they never say who the enemy might be. There's a few times in this movie we go, we have to do this in case the enemy does it first, and I'm like, who are the enemy right now?
I am almost positive that's because this is early 2000s and we were kind of in the transition point of like, okay, the enemy is no longer Russia as in general it has been. The enemy is now the Middle East. But like, can we justify saying that the Middle East has seismic weapons that are able to cause pacemakers to stop? Maybe not. So let's just say the enemy. Let's make it very vague.
Yes. So they're basically kicked out at that point. Says, okay, that's all we wanted to know. You can go home now. But Aaron Eckhart keeps seeing news stories of like birds in London like swarming and falling out of the sky and crashing into windows.
I love that scene because it starts out with there's just like one dead pigeon on the ground, or like it's like squirming around or whatever. And it's a kid who sees it, and dad's like, oh, it's okay, that just happens. And then they're in, I think they're in Trafalgar Square, if I'm not incorrect there. But all of a sudden there's just a bunch of pigeons who start crashing into statues. And the whole of the pigeons, when we see the swarm, is probably CGI, but these ones hitting the statues are absolutely crew members with like stuffed pigeons, just chucking them at walls.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need a fancy, like cannon, right? You just need like a crew member with an arm. Just
right.
So sometimes. An example I have from making student films is that, I really need like wind blowing through this person's hair. All right, who's free? Wave this big flag thing at them so to get a gust of wind going, and it works on camera. It just looks like wind.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the simplest solution is the easiest one.
My favorite ones, obviously, so it requires a lot more coordination, but the ones where it's like they're sitting next to a car, like and they're supposed to be driving, and you have them like moving branches behind the window periodically to get the illusion of movement.
Well. The thing that usually lets that down is if the car's not rocking enough. If it's too smooth, you can tell it's
that's post.
Yeah. The period of time where they were using that technique was not the time where they could add that in post. That's a modern thing.
I don't know. You could do a lot in Adobe. Just jiggle up and down.
No, I'm telling you, Adobe didn't exist then. That's like they don't use this branch past the window isn't used now.
I'm talking about for student films. I'm not talking about like the people who make this.
I'm talking about real cinema here. Come on. Real films.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on. You were talking about your own films for a second there. And now you're saying are you saying your own films are real cinema?
Look, if that's what you took from what I said, I'm not going to correct you.
Gotcha. I in that case, I demand to see them for Criterion Cut. We got to do it.
Anyway, so obviously, like, he starts looking into things. He's like, hey, my two assistants who are going to disappear from the movie after this scene, look up every weird thing in the last couple of months and let's map all this out and do that. And he's like, please be wrong, please be wrong. And he ends up going to Stanley Tucci's character, who's this more sort of successful, famous, like, scientist who, like, does, like, talks at the White House and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, I need you to look and, like, double check my numbers. And he's like, I was going to give you an autograph. What, I don't have time for this. I'm serious. Look at them. It's the end of the world, dipshit. So it cuts to them and he's looking at him. He's like, oh, I mean, we're checking them against my numbers, but you must be wrong. But it teases here that, like, he does know something because he pulls out some top secret files and he makes a call to Richard Jenkins and says Destiny's caught up with us. And we don't really know what that means in the moment, but it does seed that there's something going on here.
Yeah, he pulls out the top secret file, and I honestly, this is one of those things that I wonder if it were visible back in, like, the DVD days, because it seems so small it might have blurred itself out. But nowadays you can see the file does definitively say Project Destiny on it, so you at least get a little bit of, like, oh, Destiny is this. It's not just them saying Destiny is caught up to us in a vague sort of, like, oh, we did this thing and we're just saying Destiny as what it's supposed to mean. It is actually the name of the thing.
Yeah, I mean, that side of it is, like, it gives them a bit of a ticking clock later on, because, like, oh, the plan B is just to fire this Destiny thing up again. But of course the idea, they never quite confirmed, but the theory is that Project Destiny, which was basically a weapon designed to cause earthquakes in other parts of the world with no trace, might have actually been what's caused the core to stall and stop moving as it's supposed to. And I'm like, okay, I guess very, very loosely we're maybe talking about, you know, like, we're responsible for the Earth dying, so we're kind of touching on climate change in a very indirect kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that route. For me, this strikes me more as just the idea of man's hubris. Like, it's not even climate change in so much as it is just, like, you know, building these big, it's the same sort of thing of, like, nukes. It's this thing of, like, oh, we built this big weapon to take out our enemies, not caring that it's also going to kill all of us in the process. He even brings up mutually assured destruction in the process. So I feel like it's more of a nuke metaphor than anything else, but it fits both. Yeah.
So yeah, one or two more other, like, random disastery things happens, and Aaron Eckhart ends up being pulled in again by the same feds to come and do a talk at the Pentagon with a bunch of bigwigs. Stanley Tucci's sitting there, and Stanley Tucci's a pompous prick who says, you explain it to them, but I'll fill in the difficult parts. And
yeah.
All right.
I think the general comes in and, like, introduces saying, like, oh yes, we heard from Stanley Tucci that you helped him in his discovery of this massive thing. And Aaron Eckhart's like, I did what? Okay, I helped him do this. And Stanley Tucci's like, yeah, you know, science, whatever, come on, let's do this.
Yeah, because I think because I didn't really remember it that well, like, this part of the movie as much, I thought when he pulled out that secret file earlier on, I was thinking, oh, is this like almost like a deep impacts type thing where he stumbled into something that the government already know about and they're already like trying to plot for it. Now, that's obviously not where it goes, but I think maybe just because we watched Deep Impact a couple of weeks ago, that is when my mind jumped when he pulled that out. Obviously, that's not where they went.
Makes sense.
So most of this explanation scene, I think, is fine, right? Obviously, I get why he uses the peach because the pit represents the core, but I do think that the apple has a core, so it was annoying me that he was going for a peach, but I get visually why it's a better option. That's just a weird nitpick on my part.
I mean, my nitpick is, why does the Pentagon have 3 full fruit tables in the war room? That seems weird.
Hey, you got to get your fiber in the war room.
Yeah.
So he's explaining this, and he's like, oh, here's the crust, and this is good for us, for the audience, for later, explaining the layers of the cake, if you will. It's like, hey, top layer is the crust, then you've got the mantle, and then you've got the core, and then you've got the inner core and the outer core. Inner core's solid, outer core's not, and the outer core spins around, you know, and that's the engine, and that's how he describes it, that, you know, basically runs the magnetic field that protects us from solar radiation and a bunch of other stuff, right? It's very important, and it's going to cause all sorts of things. It'll knock out electronics, and then eventually it's just going to let the sun burn us all. And the one part where I really had a problem is that he halfway through says to Stanley Tucci, hey, can you, or even at the start, he's like, hey, you got to kind of what was it, hairspray or air freshener?
Yeah.
He's like, go get a can of air freshener. And someone gets sent to go get air freshener. And then halfway through, he's like, hey, Stanley Tucci, come up here with that later. I feel like by the time they're in position to demonstrate this part, he's already described it will kill everyone on Earth, like we'll all burn to death. I don't really think the visual of the peach on fire was that like everyone understands what the Earth on fire because the sun's burning us all alive means. I don't think setting the peach on fire actually helped anything other than just being like, hey, this is good for like a visual thing for the movie.
I was gonna say again, this is boiling it down to the point of it doesn't actually apply to actual science anymore. We're not going to say this idea of like, oh yeah, no, the entire Earth's going to actually catch on fire, because realistically it's not. It's just going to get really hot. Like nothing's going to actually catch on fire in that regard. But it's a good visual.
Whoa, I think some wildfires that happen every year now say otherwise. Yeah. There will be fire.
I'm more talking about like you will not see the visual floating out in space of this giant fireball still orbiting the sun.
No. The Earth itself will not be a giant fireball, but there will absolutely be fires on the surface.
Yes. And as is one of the things in this movie. We do actually get to see a little bit of that. But no, it is I think it's just there for the visual. It is absolutely there for the sake of like, you may not remember the specifics of the magnetic field failing or the ozone or all that stuff, but you will remember the peach on fire. You will remember the charred peach being dropped into the water jug.
I felt like everything else he said was helping our brains, like them in the scene who don't know the science and in the audience. It was helping, like, explain the layers of the core and the crust and all that. Yes, absolutely. All that's important information to understand the rest of the movie. The peach on fire felt like it was a regression. It felt like it was taking away from what we just learned as opposed to helping us understand it. I don't know. It was actively a negative to the scene to me. But
I mean, that's like half of the things that they do of this dumbing down, this metaphor of translating it over to something that people can easily understand. They do it, and then like they have to immediately either shift metaphors halfway through in order to like talk about the problem or something else with it, or they have to then just go into the sciencey talk to say like, okay, but like here's a specific thing that we need to talk about. My favorite one is they keep on talking about the core as an engine. They keep on talking about how it's an engine that's stalled, and that engine is what produces our magnetic field. And then they talk about later on, when they're talking about Project Destiny, saying like, oh yeah, we need nukes to restart it, but if you drop a small wrench into a big engine, it still has the potential to stall it. So you don't need a lot to stop the engine, just to start it. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. And then like immediately afterwards, as they're still continuing that metaphor of small engine or small wrench and big engine, they then pivot over into like stones in a pond and like those ripple and stuff like that. And it's at a certain point, like the metaphors start clashing with each other. They do start causing problems of, wait, what are we talking about now? Why are we switching over to a pond now? But it works. I think it's fine. It is expecting you to actively not remember the earlier stuff, so that way they can just throw this new one at you each time.
Yeah, so it's the end of this scene where Stanley Tucci's like, hey, what if we could? What if we could go to the core, right? Because, Aaron Eckhart explains clearly that we're all dead within a year, right? 3 months, we're back in the Stone Age. In a year's time, everyone's dead. All life on Earth is dead. It's like, okay, all right, that seems like a big deal. So they go to the old partner of Stanley Tucci, who's Delroy at Lindo, who was his partner, but like they had like a breakup, and Lindo kind of blames him for like stealing all the fame and the money and having all the acknowledgement that he never got. So he's been kind of out in the desert, but he's been making plans for this underground ship. He wants, his dream project's been, and he's been working away at it. So he demonstrates two things here specifically, right? He demonstrates the giant lasers, I'll call them, that sort of cut into rock, right? And he cuts into this big side of a mountain, and then they look through it, and there's just a big tunnel that's been made, right? These lasers have just went right through it. And then similar, back inside, he's demonstrating what the hull of the ship would be made of to actually withstand the pressure and the heat and all that. And this is what ends up being called unobtainium. He's designed this new material. but he has like a mini version of the laser that he blasts this thing with, and it's sitting on like a concrete slab, and there's like a big steel wall behind it, and they get melted through, so like there's like a shape of like where it's been blocked by this little box of the unobtainium, and you can see a hole even in the wall going to the outside. And in both occasions, I stopped and went, how far does this beam go? Because it seems like it may keep going till it hits something else.
Nah. It dissipates after a while. Usually Mars. It's fine.
Because I feel like you should have like a wall of this unobtainium eventually to just block the whole thing, so that it won't just go straight and, you know, cut through a town miles away.
Well, we do see in the obviously in the mountain test, it takes some time to get through the mountain. It's not just an instant vaporization. Like, there is like a chipping away process here. And same thing with the melting of the steel and all that. And then when we see it underground, when we see the visual effects, it is melting this, like, I don't know how big Virgil is, but this big, like, section in front of the ship as it's going, but no further than that. So it does have a range. It does have a distance it can travel before it stops doing what it's doing, but it's not infinite.
I don't know, it didn't look like it had much of a, because if there's nothing to resist it, it didn't seem like there was much stopping its range in those scenes.
Oh, no. And I'll say in both cases, we have the issue of, I don't think he set up any sort of like warning tape or anything on the other side. Like, if there were a janitor walking by at that point, they'd be dead.
Yeah, I mean, because all I can imagine is that it'll keep going until the natural curvature of the Earth means that it sort of starts to fly off upwards into the sky. And then at that point, maybe you're hitting a plane or something. I don't know.
I was going to say, it's the space station, and then we just go into a different disaster movie.
That's how gravity happens. It's just this beam comes up to hits the station.
He hits a Russian satellite, which causes debris, which then, man, it's part of the Avatar universe too. It's all connected.
All comes together.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, the end of this scene is like, so how long would it take you to build this ship? And he's like, hey, if I really, get my plans ready and I get everything sorted out, I've got some kinks to figure out, all the materials, 12, maybe 10 years, optimistically 10 years. And like, what would it take to get it done in less than 3 months? And he just kind of laughs maniacally and says, $15 billion. And then Richard Jenkins is like, well, you take a check. And I'm like, okay. I feel like that'd be such, like, I assume they would just set him up with like a fund to access as opposed to personally giving him a check that he just puts into his own bank account. That's so weird.
No. I'm sure it was a joke, because even Aaron Eckhart follows up with like, you should use your credit card, you'll get miles. Like, it's absolutely just a thing of like, no, the US government's willing to give you whatever you want right now.
Well, yeah, because if you don't, then all of us are dead. So it's kind of all hands on deck kind of thing. Except we have to keep it secret, which is why the next person we recruit is a hacker who when he realizes the feds are at his door, he's putting CDs in the microwave, he's doing scanner magnets on all of these computers to erase the data. He's putting floppy disks in the sink. Even in 2003, floppy disks feel a bit out of date.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, this is Rat. His name is Rat. He's played by DJ Qualls, and
David J. Qualls.
Yes, exactly. And he is absolutely like, he's been convicted of felonies, and he is not allowed near computers anymore. So when they catch him, he's like, these may look like computers, but they're not. And obviously, then the general chews him out. But like, look. I have seen many a like FBI TV show and like things where they do raids on houses and stuff like that, where the guy that they're raiding is doing this exact stuff. He's like wiping computers and stuff like that. Never has the content been good. Never has the thing that is on these files been good. Now, Rat seems like a nice enough guy, but like showing me that with like a modern sensibility, I'm like, I think he probably deserves to be in jail. I'm not sure what it is he's wiping here.
Yeah. No, I didn't think of that as I was watching it, but you're right. If someone's like erasing things that severely, I'm like, there's only one thing I think you have on those drives.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm sure it's just government secrets and his Roblox account or whatever, but like, it seems worse than that.
No, this predates Roblox by about 2 or 3 years, I think.
But, does it? All right, fair enough.
I think so, anyway.
I don't know, when was Minecraft? Later than that.
Oh, later than that. Yeah, I was like 2008 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah. But no, he gets brought in front of the general, and this is where we get like just the worst. Like I don't know how better to describe it than the worst. Where Stanley Tucci's like, oh, this kid, like, do we really need him? Is this really the best we can do? And then he goes off on his whole thing.
I want to say one of the lines here. Yeah. Actually, just before I say that, on video games, at one point in the scene where Aaron Eckhart's talking to his assistants, he's holding up a magazine to say, "Oh, I've read a news story in this." The back of the magazine was an ad for the video game. I think it's called Shadow Man, but I remember seeing that ad in a lot of magazines back in the day. You maybe think of video games because you brought them up.
Yeah, no, that's
but no, he looks at Stanley Tucci when Stanley Tucci's been all hoity-toity, and he's like, "How many languages do you speak?" And he's like, "Well, 5 actually." And he's like, "Well, I speak 1. 0 1 0 1 1 0, and with that I can steal all your money, I can hack governments, I can steal your sexual fantasies, I can steal everything. My kung fu is stronger than your kung fu."
That goddamn kung fu line. I hate that kung fu line.
And he brings it back as well. He says it again at the end, or some variation of it.
Yeah, it's when he takes down Destiny. He's just like, your kung fu is not strong. And then just as if like to prove a point, like the fact that like, oh yeah, he's been convicted of all this stuff. He's clearly very serious about it, whatever. They say like Aaron Eckhart steps up and he tries to be kind. And in response, Rat takes his phone, pulls out a piece of gum, uses the wrapper to blow a specific like tone into the phone while pressing some random buttons, and then he's like, there, that phone has free long distance for life, because he's hacked the phone system. And they're like, all right, we need your help. You gotta control the flow of information on the internet to make sure nobody finds out about this stuff. And he's like, that's impossible, no one can control the net. And he's like, well, you gotta do it. And he says, cool, I'm gonna need Xena tapes and Hot Pockets.
Oh, see when he says that. Xena tapes and Hot Pot. And then not only that, and this really bothers me, and this again, I'm jumping to the end here, but when the final scene happens and he goes to a cyber cafe to leak the information, and he does the thing where he whips out the top secret folders, and then he sits down on a Hot Pocket that's just on its own. It's not on a little plate, it's not in like a wrapper. I mean, Hot Pockets aren't a thing here, so I don't know what packaging they come in, but...
foil and a cardboard sleeve.
Yeah, it's not in a sleeve or anything. He just sits it down, and he picks it back up with his bare hand, takes a bite, and then he puts a disc into the computer, and I'm like, your hand must be so greasy. You just touched a Hot Pocket. This is disgusting. I am actually offended at this right now, David.
I'm sorry.
Not David.
Yeah, I know. Okay, look, I'm pretty sure his name is just DJ, but at this point, we'll run with David.
David J. Qualls.
The bit that got me, if we're just skipping to the end here, and he does this several times. Like, there's a scene where like he's doing his hacking, and it's like, all the screens popping up saying like access denied. And obviously, it's not like real hacking. It's just whatever computer Hollywood thinks of.
I love when he's transferring files, and the photographs of the people that he's like telling the world about are on the files as they're being transferred visually on the computer.
My favorite bit, and this is the bit that pissed me off, and this is not specific to this movie, is as he's running the program, he goes, all right, let's do this. And then he does like a single finger from like above frame down into it. Like he's like, click. I don't know if you've ever tried to press a button like that on your keyboard, Pete, of like all the way down, but it's much harder than just tap.
Yep. No, I agree.
Yeah. No, I have nothing more to add. I just hate this. I hate this character so much. It's not even like he's not unlikable in the same way that the Armageddon characters are unlikable. Like the Armageddon characters are unlikable from a viewpoint of they're just shouting and they're poorly written and there's barely any substance to them. He doesn't have a lot of substance to him either, but at least he feels like he's trying to be part of the plot. Like it doesn't feel like he's completely a throwaway character, despite the fact that he absolutely could be.
He's not, like, he's a lot of cliches, but he's not insufferably like unpleasant as like a Michael Bay character is. He's just he's just a string of cliches is the thing. Like, and I suppose that's maybe one of the weird recommendations for this movie is if you want like a weird time capsule of like cliches from like 2003, then this is a good movie for that because it hits a lot of the notes. So
absolutely. Yep.
yeah. So yeah, they get him on board, and then they're like, okay, we've got, our pilots, because the other big tragedy that happens that really gets things moving is the space shuttle coming down, and because the electromagnetic field is wonky, all of the numbers they've got for their landing are wrong, so they end up being close to LA when they're supposed to be landing in another state, and they're like, shit, we've got no place to land, we're already coming down, we can't just take back up, we're not a plane, we're the space shuttle. So it's like, well, what do we do? And Hilary Swank, who's like the second in command, is like, hey, the LA River, I've got coordinates, let's do that. And they're reluctant at first, but it's either that or start crashing into cars on the highway. So it's like, okay, let's try the LA River. So there's some dodging of the bridges and what, it's a little action sequence, is what it is. But that's the big introduction to her and the fact that she is an astronaut, as well as Bruce, what's his name, Greenwood, who's here. He's like the captain astronaut.
Yeah, and this is where they basically introduce her entire character arc, if you can call it that, is that she's
perfect. She never loses. She doesn't know how to accept defeat because she's never lost anything.
However,
I can relate.
She has never gotten like the command position. She wants to be in charge. She wants to be able to take control.
Well, she's like 25, to be fair. They don't tend to be giving out command positions at 25.
If you've never lost anything before, and then they're saying, sorry, you don't get this promotion, she's going to be like, But no, Bruce Greenwood basically, over the course of the movie, comes out and says, like, look, you're good, you're all that, but, like, command is about more than just being good at what you do. You have to be able to take responsibility for all this stuff. And over the course of the movie, you could say she learns that because she's forced to take command. Like, it's a whole thing. We'll get to it.
Okay. I was curious, actually, I double-checked. She was 29 when she made the movie, so, I mean, it's still young for command, but she wasn't,
not like fresh out of the academy.
Yeah. Yeah, because by the time you go through the academy, and presumably you are pretty well educated to be an astronaut. So like, how long is she out of school of any kind at this point? Probably not that long.
I mean, I would look up what like NASA's academy stuff is, but I feel like it's wildly different for all sorts of positions. Sure. I can't say for certain.
But assuming she has to do like a regular, like, 4-year like college or university, and then maybe even like like a post-grad or something, or maybe she goes straight to NASA, or I don't know. But like, I
mean, I feel like most astronauts are also pulled from like Air Force or other branches of military as well, so maybe she would have to do a tour there.
And a tour is what, like 4 years typically?
I don't know, beats me.
Something like that. Anyway, the point is that like I have to imagine this was like one of her first trips up to space, is what I'm saying. She has to be a rookie relative to ancient Bruce Greenwood.
I also like how this is just a completely generic space trip that they're coming back from. It's not like from the moon or the space station. It's just like, yeah, we were in space and now we're coming back. Don't worry about it.
We were in checking just to make sure the Earth wasn't on fire. But now it looked all right. We're coming back down. So here we go.
Probably should have delayed that by a few weeks. We might have been able to see something. Yeah, and it's interspliced with all the other stuff, but her character, essentially, they're having a trial meeting, whatever you want to call it, a session on what happened here, how did this get so pulled off course, and the general character, who's apparently an old family friend, is like, yeah, you should expect to not have your job anymore. Like, you crashed a shuttle into the LA River. That's not something we're really going to allow you back up in space for. But then when they have the meeting, they're like, you did a great job. You saved the lives of all the people on board. You saved LA. So we're putting you on this super special secret mission that is going to require you and Bruce Greenwood to take command.
For some reason, when you said you saved LA, the I Love LA song just popped out in my head. Yeah. I just hear dan dan dan. Dan, 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 dan. Like, literally, Tommy Lee Jones has just saved the city from a volcano, and then she's, flown the shuttle down into the LA River.
LA's had some real troubles ever since we couldn't film in New York anymore.
But yeah, so they're the ones that are enlisted. And I kind of agree. It's kind of weird that they did that scene where she's told, oh, you're probably going to be like basically cancelled from ever like being a pilot or a space pilot again, because this was kind of on you for making this choice. And I'm like, okay, first of all, even without the anomaly, right, forgetting why it happened, which was a natural thing that like isn't anyone's fault, like they were in the situation they were in. She came up with a method that got no one hurt. In what world is she not a genius hero for doing this?
But she needs to learn some humility, Pete. She needs to learn how to take an L.
Because even it feels like even Bruce Greenwood is never satisfied. He's like, oh, you're too perfect, and I'm like, it's really coming across that you don't like that the woman's better at you than things. Like, it's actually coming across as a little misogynistic, to be honest, at a certain point.
No, I honestly think it is that, because he specifically says, like, oh, Rebecca. And she's like, oh, only you and Dad call me that. I go by Beck. Like, that's the name I would like to go by. And he keeps calling her Rebecca, as if he does see her as this, like, harmless little girl the whole time.
Yeah. Well, that's Jenkins calls her that, but I think for him it's more like he is kind of like an uncle type character. Like, it's because they sort of established they know each other, and he cares that she's in trouble later on. So they're going for like a long family relationship. Anyway, they're on board. Aaron Eckhart makes a speech to everyone. I'm going to high horse here for a second, right?
Go for it.
There's a whole sequence here where Aaron Eckhart can't tie his tie, and I just have to say, as someone who's not an American, watching a movie where a grown-ass man cannot tie a tie is really weird for me, okay?
I get it. It's a weird scene placement, and like, but I think that it is basically to come down to his character to say that he is not this hoity-toity part of the system kind of guy, and he's
sure,
always been...
I know, but I just understand that everyone here had to wear them in school, so everyone here knows how to tie a goddamn tie.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, we have far too much independence, Pete. We don't know what to do with it all, and part of it is we don't wear ties to school.
Look, don't get me wrong. See, if it's a bow tie, like, yeah, I don't know how to tie a bow tie. I've never had to wear a bow tie in my life. Like, that's a fair one. But a tie is a pretty common thing you have to wear. I don't know. It just
I think I think that there is a period, no matter what, like growing up, eventually you're going to, as like ages of 10 to 20, somewhere in there, you're gonna have to attend like a wedding or a funeral or something. And at that point,
orgy.
You're probably going to want to learn, that you wear formal wear to an orgy. Absolutely.
Ones I go to,
you're going to have to learn how to tie a tie. Like, maybe he got by on just always having clip-ons, but you'd think at some point he would have learned. I agree. I know how to tie a tie, and I'm no Aaron Eckhart.
I mean, if you can do it.
Yeah. I'm a DJ Qualls practically.
So anyway, he explains to like a select group of people, hey, this is what the mission is, this is what we have to do. Different countries are donating their nukes, so there's a bit of a, hey, we're going to use weapons of mass destruction for a good purpose to save the planet kind of thing. They're doing a little bit of that. And yeah, we get a couple of training montages of them like in a simulator, and things aren't going very well, and all the usual stuff, and talking about how it's going to take 10,000 megatons to reignite the core and get everything spinning again, and all the rest of it. I don't really have too much to say about this chunk. I mean, obviously it reiterates the whole, you're too perfect, Hilary Swank. You keep fixing things that isn't even your speciality.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point that the other four people, because Surge is back as well, we didn't mention that. It gets to the point that all four of them are not, military. They're not built for this. So when they're training, they're very much talking over each other, arguing. It's a team that needs to be whipped into shape. And we get other little bits of Aaron Eckhart and Hilary Swank flirting, which is just more proof that she's perfect, because he's like, oh, I'm trying to get this imaging processor for like being able to see through rocks and solid lead and stuff like that, but it's coming out blurry. And Hilary Swank tries touching buttons, and he's like, no, wait, hold on, you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna mess it up. And then she just like jiggles the joystick a little bit, and it's perfect. So Hilary Swank can do no wrong. Yeah,
he says it's basically like a long-range CAT scan style, like MRA type like camera.
I think it's MRI. I think MRA is...
Oh, sorry, MRI. That's what I meant.
Military in Ireland.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. I just misspoke. Yeah. But I was like, isn't it like there's literally a guy walking in front of the camera as they're testing it, and I thought, isn't that like kind of dangerous to have people just walking like past an MRI beam?
I was watching this with my wife, who is in the medical field, and I was like, how much radiation does like a CAT scan give off? And she's like, I mean, not too much. And I'm like, okay, but if someone said super duper CAT scan, she's like, yeah, probably a lot then. I'm like, okay, just want to be clear. Just
if I'm remembering, there's a reason why everyone else gets out the room when you're having one, and you're only allowed to have one every so often, just to make sure you're not getting too much radiation. So this janitor, whoever he is walking in front in the scene, and I'm like, I feel like this guy's like got cancer now. Like, what's we doing here?
I will say, if they so I remember they said CAT scan. Maybe that's the same. I'm not in the field. MRI apparently does not use radiation.
Oh, okay.
It uses magnets and radio waves in order to give it stuff. So maybe that's what they're rolling off of, is saying like, oh, we're just going to be doing all of MRI stuff in order to make it non-radioactive.
I wonder why they'll just use that for everything then instead of X-rays. Like, why aren't we using just that tech for all the scans?
I think it comes down to X-rays are a lot cheaper, faster, and technically you can do them without major issues as long as it's every once in a while. But
sure, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I imagine you can't just beam X-rays into the brain. That's why they don't do it. That's why they've developed a safer way.
I mean, yeah, all you would just if look, I've gotten dental X-rays before.
Oh, so have I, yeah.
It shows the bones. Any sort of squishy stuff is just kind of bleh. It's gone.
Yeah. No, that's it just got me thinking. But fair enough. I do wonder though, because again, he's talking about this is seeing through like lead, and I'm like, okay, that's the one thing Superman can't see through. So I'm like, how powerful is this? I still think that this is so powerful that the guy might be harmed by walking in front of it constantly.
That's the thing, is no matter what they're using, this thing does have to give off and receive some sort of energy in order to function. So there's no reason that this guy should not be at least a little warm, at the very least.
Yeah, one of the little disaster scenes we get, well, I say little, it actually ends up being a big thing. Like, Rome kind of gets decimated, but it starts off with like just a couple of electrical devices having little bits of electricity sort of like going around them, it's basically like a strong static thing, but we're getting visual effects of actual blue lightning, like sparks going around it. And people are getting these little shocks. But then, of course, the entire city starts to like kind of collapse and buildings.
Yeah, no, the Colosseum, I don't know what they were like, what the implication here is, but they show shots from outside the Colosseum where all of the Colosseum is like brightly lit up as if there's like a rave going on in there. And I'm like, are you implying that there's just a constant stream of lightning bolts hitting the center of the Colosseum to make it light up this way?
And then it explodes along with a lot of other buildings in Rome, so it's pretty decimated by the end.
Oh well, at least Paris is still standing.
Yeah, but Paris is in danger later on, but it doesn't get decimated.
No, I was just talking from Armageddon, because they were the one city that was just like, they're screwed.
Well, every single movie we've done has very badly affected New York. Maybe in 2003, no one wanted to do anything bad to New York because it was so close to 9/11. They're like, no, let's not do anything to New York. They've had a rough time in real life. Let's not mess with that.
Absolutely. I do not doubt that for a second, that's the reason we were landing in LA rather than anywhere on the East Coast.
Yeah, and San Francisco also gets a fair share of stuff later.
Yeah.
We'll just talk about that now, actually. So one of the biggest effects is that basically DJ Qualls, right? David J. Qualls, apart from the fact that he's only there to like monitor the internet and like try and take down anyone talking about what's happening, which feels absurd when there's like major like cities being decimated. But let's ignore that. He's the one that stands up and says, oh, those magnetic cloud things he was talking about, it's opened a hole right near San Francisco. And then we cut to, like, I get that they have to do some kind of visual, but it almost looks like the sun is firing Superman's heat vision to Earth. There's this beam of light coming, and it goes through like a hole that opens up in the ozone layer, which again is a visible thing. You see a hole open up, and then not only that, but then you see this beam of light, like a laser beam, like moving across the water, and like the water's bubbling, and it's getting closer and closer to the Golden Gate Bridge. And don't get me wrong, I think the actual shots of like the tires melting, the beams melting, and the bridge falling apart, I do think that part of it's kind of fun, but there's a movie we're getting to later in this season where people are going to run away from ice, and this was giving me the same vibes, where this wouldn't be like such a focused laser. This would be more of a, like the entire area would be feeling the effects, not just this one little like pinpoint, like
yeah. Like, look, we know for a fact that over like the 70s days, there was a hole in the ozone layer over the Antarctic. Like, that was a thing. That happened. We don't have a little line through the snow of where the sun, like, moved its way across. It absolutely was a diffuse, like, all right, it just got hotter there. That's all it really was. But, again, the science is never going to make sense. The fact that they're saying, like, oh, yes, all these superstorms are going to be causing, like, all these lightning strikes per minute. You do understand that lightning strikes happen now. Like, we have buildings that are struck by lightning now, and they don't explode. Like, it's not a thing where all of a sudden the Colosseum's going to explode because of too many lightning strikes.
It's a fair point, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very fair point. Anyway, so the whole mission, they're getting set up, and because these disasters are happening, I mean, the sunlight one happens later, they're already, like, on their trip when that happens, but a lot of these other things, like, sort of, like the Rome ones, like, oh shit, we need to get going, like, things are getting bad, we need to go. We're not ready, it doesn't matter, time to move. So they get in their big ship, and they launch into the water, because I guess you might as well, like, go through some water at first, because it's softer.
I was under the implication, I don't think they ever actually say it, but I was under the implication that this was like the Marianas Trench. Like, this, they picked a specifically, like, a point that was already deep into the crust, so that way they wouldn't have to cut any further.
Yeah, although they did, they mentioned that the unobtainium, like, gets stronger with more pressure, and that's why it's perfect for this mission, because it's going to be tons of pressure by the time they're like going, even in the water it's already pressure. But at the same time, he does say, like, oh, we won't actually feel that pressure properly until we get really deep, so we're actually really vulnerable until we get to a certain distance. And I'm like, okay, I guess that creates some drama on the way down, because it's like, oh, we may just get ruptured by a big something and die before we even hit the crust.
Yeah, that's the thing that they keep doing in this movie, is they keep on bringing up the fact that, like, we did this in 3 months. Like, all of this stuff was kind of haphazardly thrown together for the ideal mission. And anytime that we have a little hiccup, like, oh, because we chose this thin area in the crust, it is something where there's going to be more seismic activity. And that's when he decides to blurt out, like, by the way, we're going to be super vulnerable until we get deeper into the mantle, because it's not enough pressure yet. So that keeps on happening throughout the movie, where they mention, oh, this was never designed to do that, because why would I ever expect that we'd have to do that? And then they have to solve around it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously once they get past the crust, the visuals of is basically just like a bunch of blobs on this, like, MRI scanner screen. Occasionally there's something interesting that's almost like a Star Trek scene where it's like, hey, what's this, like, weird object? Like, why is there static? And then Aaron Eckhart realizes, oh, that must be empty space, because I never taught it how to read empty space. Also, this ship can't fly, so we assumed there'd be a liquid or solid to go through at all times. This is a problem. And they end up in, like, a bubble of, like, crystals, which is probably the most fantastical, like sequence in the movie.
It's weird, because they go through the effort. They say, like, oh, this must be a giant geode. And geodes are a thing that exists. It's crystals inside of, like, a shell you can crack open. And they say, oh, in order to sustain the temperatures or whatever, it must have a cobalt shell and blah, blah, blah. And, like, they go through the effort of giving a half-assed explanation as to how this thing can exist. But the setting itself, the idea that they, like, crashed into this field of crystals, it seems like they at least had a soundstage or something where they built some actual crystals. Like, it wasn't all CGI, it wasn't all miniatures. But B, it does feel the most fantastical that this gets. Because you're right, almost everything from this point on is blobs on a screen. It's the computerized, like, digitization of showing what they're approaching, and then it's a couple outdoor shots from outside the ship, which is called Virgil, by the way. We didn't mention that. And it's very much, I'm just gonna say it's 2003 special effects. It ain't great. It's not as high quality as you would like, but it is also just goo and rocks. That's all they really have to show in these sequences.
They get away with it for most of the ship stuff and the going down to the core. It's the stuff on the surface or the CG that sticks out as looking like a sore thumb. I mean, it does feel fantastical, and I know at some point on Ace we're going to do Journey to the Center of the Earth, the original, and maybe the remake as well at some point. And that's a lot more like, oh, we're finding hidden places where we can actually walk around, and there's creatures down here, and there's a bunch of just nonsense. But it kind of feels like when people used to make stories about going to the moon and finding life on the moon, where we would never do that now, because we just all know 100% it ain't there. But there was a time when the imaginations were running wild, and this feels like the closest thing to something from Journey to the Center of the Earth to me is this, like, big cave of crystals. Although they still, say it's bloody hot in here, so the fact that we have to go outside and unjam a couple of crystals from the front of the ship to get going again is pretty dangerous. I will say, if you never expected to encounter empty space, why did you even bring suits that could go outside?
Because photo ops. I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing.
First thing that came out of my head, as soon as they said we have to go outside, and we see them in these like basically spacesuits, right? But obviously they're designed for thermals instead of everything else. Yeah. And all I could think was, why are these here? And not only just you've got one or two, you've got enough for basically the entire crew, as if this was going to be something you'd be doing at some point. So it's just kind of weird to me.
All right, yeah. The only thing I could think is later on when we get to the second to last death of the movie, he has to go into like a crawl space area to do a repair, and he has to wear the suit there for the sake of the pressure and the heat. It obviously isn't enough to deal with it of how hot and pressured it is at that point, which is why he ends up dying. But maybe that there's a thing where it's like, look, you've got the main hull areas, the main areas that you can walk around in, but then there are the crawl spaces that if you need to make a repair, you put on one of these suits. You're still not technically outside, but it is something where you would need protection.
Sure. But would you need to have it be airtight with the oxygen supply?
I would assume so. Okay. At the very least, it'd be super hot out there. You would need to be able to, you wouldn't be able to just filter the air as easily.
No, and okay, fair enough. You've came up with a reason that might be plausible. Fair enough.
That's all this movie is. It's just coming up with reasons that might be plausible. That's all you have to do.
Anyway, the first person down is the captain, who gets like just they're ready to go. The lava's rising because they've punctured the big hole when they come in here. Lava starts flowing in. I have a question. This movie treats lava like it's the lava itself as a source of light. And I'm not saying that's inaccurate because I don't actually know if it is, but I did pose the question. I'm like, is it actually that much of a source of light? Technically, it's really hot. I know that, and it's orange and red. And I guess when I think fire is a source of light, and that's a hot thing, so maybe there is some real stuff there to that. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's called black body or thermal radiation. It does emit light. It does actually cause a glow. It's the same sort of thing of like fire giving off light. It's just the heat itself.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
being emitted, and also there's photon emission.
Because it really lights up this entire cavern when this comes in.
I think that might be Hollywoodization. Yeah. I think you would get like a dim glow to it, but the fact that they're like looking around and seeing all the crystals, I think you would get about like 3 feet in front of you, and that's about it.
Yeah, it felt like it was like someone turned on. Well, not even turned on. It's like there was a fire as opposed to just lava, right? Yeah. It felt like there was a giant flame burning around them. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
The other thing that happens in this scene right before the captain dies is the torch that's to cut through one of the crystals. The oxygen supply runs out, so Aaron Eckhart does the hero move and disconnects his own oxygen in order to fuel it, and they get him back in the ship at the last moment, right before he dies of oxygen suffocation.
Yeah, it's an okay sequence. It's doing all that stuff where like they're vulnerable because it's really dangerous out here. I do appreciate the captain's death is very sudden. It's just one little bit of rock that just comes shooting down and goes through his suit into his head, and he falls into the lava. It's not quite the jumping on the train tracks to throw the person to their safety. It's not quite that heroic moment for Volcano, but it's okay. It's okay for what it is.
I like the suddenness of it. I like the idea that he's like, all right, cool, we did it, everything's fine, and it's like, oh no, you've doomed yourself, you just said we did it, and then a rock comes out of nowhere and just impales him in the head. And I like the idea that this is the moment that Hilary Swank takes over. Like, she needs to take control of the mission, she's now the commander, but it comes at that cost of like a friend and a coworker of hers, and she's like, I didn't want it like this, sort of thing. Like, I like that little bit of character development for her.
It's very little, and I will also say, like, she has to make a tough choice. Like, she has to make a tough choice, like, very quickly. And to be honest, it's like, yeah, obviously you have to do the bad thing here. It makes sense you have to do the bad thing here. So it doesn't feel like there's much of a choice to be made, although it definitely. And in the way she kind of says, I had to make the tough choice, and I'm like, yes, you're basically just quoting what the captain said to you earlier on. You're really hitting us over the head. Because we basically lose characters one by one at this point, where next up is Serge, because prepping the nukes back in the last compartment, because the way the ship is designed, it's all these individual compartments, and if one gets damaged and compromises the hull, they can break away that compartment to make sure the rest of the ship's safe.
I'm gonna go ahead and just say, I get the human fear of not wanting to keep your nukes right next to you, right up on you, but putting it at the end, which means that if anything in the entire train here gets damaged, that thing has to be exploded off. That's a bad idea.
Now, to be fair, it wasn't the nukes themselves that were in the back. It was just like the timer thing. It was the controlling mechanisms. The actual nukes themselves, I think, were near the front.
Yeah,
but,
okay, fair enough.
Fair point. But so he basically runs back to get the box of like the arming nuke things when they get damaged, because Hilary Swank's flying it through, and there's all these little diamonds or even big diamonds she's dodging, because diamonds are the one thing strong enough that this camera can't see through. So she's like, but it scrapes the last compartment and they have to evacuate. But Serge has to throw in the launch code things, and then he's like, sorry, just go on without me, save my family, save the world for me.
Yeah, that's the two things that happen. One, they say unobtainium, or not unobtainium, the lasers can cut through anything except unobtainium, but I guess diamonds are like difficult to cut through, so like maybe the ship wouldn't be able to cut through it fast enough in order to maintain speed or whatever. And then the other bit is, Serge, right as soon as the scene starts, he's like giving his whole story. He's saying, oh yeah, I'm not looking to save the entire world. I just want to save 3 people, just my family, my 2 daughters and my wife. And then, wouldn't you know it, because now he has something to lose, he's the first person that's killed on the ship. And yeah, it's I think Aaron Eckhart does a great job acting here. I think it's over the top, but it feels earned over the top. It feels like he's screaming in this very much real way that's not like Hollywoodized, where it's just like, emotional, but it still feels controlled. He feels like he's about to like get snotty with it. He's about to like actually start ugly crying from all of this stuff happening.
This is actually one of my bigger character problems of the movie, is that he comes back and he's really pissed at Hilary Swank, and he's like, he was right there. If he'd just given me like 10 seconds of the door open, I could have gotten him out before everything went bad. It would have been fine. And he really gets passionate, he's crying and yelling, and it feels like there's a rift there that needs to be repaired. 2 minutes later, they're like, hey, we all need to be in our seats for this next bit. And they're like, where's Aaron Eckhart? Where's Aaron Eckhart? And then Aaron Eckhart sits down, and I'd have been fine with him sitting down at the last second and being like, all right, fine, let's do this. But he sits down, he gives a little smile to Hilary Swank and says, I'm right here. As if to say, we're cool now. And I'm like, nothing happened. Nothing happened to develop you to a point where you're wanting to be friends with her again. It feels like all of the reaction, the anger of like blaming her for the death of your friend just completely get washed away between scenes.
Yes, I agree that it does get washed away between scenes, but I think the implication here is, as he's like chewing her out, saying like, this is take a look, here's his notebook, here's a picture of his family, you caused the death of this man, this is you. She does take responsibility for it immediately. She's like, I had to make a tough choice, I made it, I know I'm responsible for this man's death, and like I feel awful about it, but it had to be done. Which
is the other problem, by the way, because she's basically just quoting verbatim what the captain said that she had to be willing to do, is you have to make a tough choice and accept responsibility for those tough choices.
Yeah, but the last thing that they say in the scene is, she goes like, it's for the mission. He says, oh yeah, for the mission, we got to save the world. And he goes, no, not the world, just 3 people. And throwing back Serge's thing to say like, that's who we're doing it for. Serge would want us to keep going. And I feel like that is enough for me, where if you just assume Aaron Eckhart just needs to go cool off for a minute, he eventually reaches the saner point of like, she really didn't have a choice. I was being overly emotional there, and like, yeah, she made the right call. And so when he sits back down, he's like, I understand, we're good now, continue on. There probably should have been a scene where they talked, or at least had like a moment there, but I think the movie does enough to show like Aaron Eckhart is not going to hold a grudge against her or anything like that.
Yeah, but it's like the only time where there might actually be, I don't know, conflict between characters that isn't just like Stanley Tucci and Lindo like bickering because they've got an old rivalry, right? Like some actual conflict and maybe a disagreement, and then being able to work through that might have been actually, I don't know, story. might have actually been.
I get what you're saying, but like, I think that because this is a thing where we obviously have the military's later stuff with Project Destiny, and I think we're like right up on the edge of that. But we have all that stuff coming in, and we have all the other things. I like the fact that the crew basically all works together. I like the fact they're all on the same page. I know they probably could have used a bit more conflict, but by the time we hit the end of it, I like having this core group that we can trust and say that they are the people that are going to be the good guys, and then they're fighting against the bad guys who are still, working for the greater good, but they're against our good guys.
Yeah. I just think it's incredibly weak to have a big scene where he gets angry at her and blames her for the death of someone, and then just is like, nah, I've forgotten all about that in the next scene. There's no consequences to it.
Yeah, fair enough. We did skip over one thing I wanted to mention, just because it's my one little Easter egg that I always look for anytime I watch this movie. When they crash down in the geode, like as they crash into the crystals, there's a shot of all 6 of our guys like in their chairs, and the entire time they're like doing the Star Trek like wiggles, like to show that like there's turbulence or whatever. But when they actually hit the ground and come to a stop, everyone leans forward in their chairs to show momentum, except for Aaron Eckhart. He misses his cue, and you can see him get visibly frustrated that he missed his cue. They just kept it in the movie.
I did not notice that. If I ever watch it again, I'll need to try and keep an eye out.
Yeah,
but,
every time I see it, I always watch for that shot because it's just funny that they kept it in.
It almost says that they didn't have another good take. It's like, all the other takes are worse for other reasons. That's what I'll just have to do, because most people won't notice, so we'll just go with it.
Every other take, someone else missed a cue. This is the one time Aaron Eckhart wasn't being professional. It's like, nope, we're just going to use this.
So once they get through the mantle and they get into the outer core, they're like, wait a minute, this is a little bit bigger than we thought it was, or it's moving faster than we thought it was.
It's not as solid.
It's not as solid. Yeah. And they're like, shit, let's do some recalculations with the nukes. Will this actually get it spinning again? And they're like, no, it's going to fall short. The 10,000 megatons we brought isn't going to be enough. Damn it, it's over. And Stanley Tucci, who's the pompous one, who's been like doing narration on his like tape recorder about the book he's going to write, he's like, well, it's time to go home because this didn't work. We'll just have to use Project Destiny. So let's go home. And they're like, screw that, we're here, let's figure out a way. And he doesn't want to. And this all leads to Lindo punching him in the face. Or Lindo, not... I combined his first and second there. Delroy Lindo is his full name.
There you go. Yeah, but no, the entire sequence is Stanley Tucci immediately gets on the phone using the Russian satellite, and he calls up and says, hey, we need to do Project Destiny. And we get the whole explanation that Project Destiny was the weapon that was used because they thought someone else made the weapon that allowed for targeted earthquakes. And so they used it, and it essentially is what stalled the Earth's core. It's what made it stop spinning. And they want to use it again because they think if they target it right, they can make it start spinning again. But Aaron Eckhart says, it's just going to speed everything up and kill us all a lot faster. And they're like, worth a shot.
What else are we going to do? That's all we can. And then eventually, like DJ Qualls, that's David J. Qualls, he has to like hack into their system and stop them from using it to give the crew more time to complete their mission. But when Stanley Tucci does wake up and he sees them trying to recalculate things, he gets the light bulb over the head moment where he's like stones in a lake. One big rock will just make a big bunch of ripples and then it'll fade away. But if you put one stone in, and then a second, and then a third, all sort of timed correctly, they'll enhance the ripples and they'll keep building into the motion. It's simple science. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure if you went to a lake and kept throwing in rocks, the ripples would still end pretty quickly. But I mean, sure.
Well, that's immediately how they follow it up. As Aaron Eckart's like, okay, but what you're talking about to work means we have to place these bombs accurate to an inch and fire them accurate to a second, and only then will all of this work out the way you're saying. And they're like, yep. And it's like, cool, let's try it.
And I don't mean to correct you here, but the actual words he used were millimeter and millisecond, not inch and second. It was even more specific.
I remember inch specifically, but maybe I'm willing to accept millisecond.
He's a scientist, right? He's not using this old
the imperial units.
Yes, yeah. He's using some proper units.
Gotcha. Second is still metric, but all right.
True. Well, no, it's not I mean, you wouldn't call time metric, would you?
No, but there is no metric unit of time. Yeah. So like everyone just uses seconds, but like it is in the metric system.
What, in that it's in tens?
No, that it's like meters per second. Like metric system is just a collection of like liters, meters, Why am I blanking on the one for speed? I can't remember what it is.
Kilometers.
But regardless, you get my point. Kilometers, that's it.
Yeah, we'd actually use kilometers.
Just...
We use miles still, but
yeah,
we mix and match just to be confusing.
Because you guys made the imperial system.
Yeah, and we've kept the ones that feel like they're important, and we've ditched the ones that are useless.
Yeah, and then America's just like, we don't want to change, so we're just going to keep on using the ones that we started with.
Oh dear. Anyway, so like, yeah, they have this idea. He's like, all right, I guess we're doing this, and the big thing for me, well, first of all, Lindo dies because he has to, like, they can't, because the whole thing is that we have to like set the bombs off in different locations, but they won't survive on their own. They have to be in these compartments. So we have to actually give them compartments of the ship to stay in to survive before the right time to blow up. It's like, okay, fine, but we can't just detach them. They only become detachable if they're damaged. And he's like, I never thought of like detaching them for any other reason. So one of us is going on a suicide mission to detach them by going to this lever and this really hot part of the ship. And so he's like, oh, I'm going to go down with my ship. I built this thing. I'll give my blood to it. So he goes out and does that whole thing.
Don't forget, you commented this on Armageddon. They draw straws.
They do. They draw straws.
Deep Impact. Never mind. But yeah, drawing straws.
Oh, that was Armageddon.
Oh, that was Armageddon. Yeah. I don't know why I thought Deep Impact. Yeah.
Yeah, because Ben Affleck gets the short straw.
Yep. And then he does the thing where he's so dead set on wanting to do it that he just has 3 straws of equal length and he just pretends that he has the short one. And he's like, oh no, sorry, guess I gotta leave. Bye.
And then the thing that leads to Stanley Tucci's death is actually hilarious and comical because so they do a whole thing where there's some turbulence, like Hilary Swank's having to duck and dodge with the ship. And it knocks over the nuke, and it sort of pins Aaron Eckhart down, and he's like, just go, man, just go. You've got to finish the mission. So it's playing it like Aaron Eckhart's about to die, but then she has to like swerve to the other direction, and the nuke rolls off of him and onto Stanley Tucci's leg. So now he's the one pinned, and I just burst out laughing because I'm like, come on, this is a comedy of errors at this point.
Absolutely.
The fact that it was pinning one of you down, then switch to the other is just silly, but yeah, sure enough.
Well, to be clear with the moment that's happening, they're firing off the nukes, they're ditching the containers, and then like as they're on the like second to last one, they're like, oh yeah, no, this was super smart of us to be able to come up with this. We should publish a paper together. And they're talking about the details of it. And then Aaron Eckhart says, and then you multiply it by 800. And then Stanley Tucci goes, no, 600. And then Aaron Eckhart goes, but you completely forgot about this science thing, right? And then they all have to run back because they realize that the last one is not going to be big enough. It's going to fail because they didn't account for something. And I think this is the only point in the movie where they don't do a good job of explaining what the hell they're talking about. Like, they say that the last one's not going to be big enough for a science reason. I think they specifically say MRI bias. But I don't know what that means.
It's something to do with what the camera's seeing. But like, oh, the last one has to be 30% bigger, and I'm like, okay, another problem is solved. But as he's like dying, or not even as he's dying, as the door's shutting, because Stanley Tucci does get a final little line, a joke before his bomb blows up later. But he's like, to make the last explosion bigger, use the power from the engine cores or something to that effect.
The fuel rods.
So it's like, okay, so now no one's going to make it back up. We can get back up, but we can set off the bombs, which does work. Immediately upstairs at the mission control, they're like, oh, our big CG visual of the core spinning started spinning. Yay, we're all saved.
Also, during this sequence, as Stanley Tucci is dying and Aaron Eckhart has to get the fuel rods, communication is dropped. Like, they can't talk to Hilary Swank up in the engine room to let her know what's going on. I'm sure it was written better. Maybe she was given a little bit of like just improv a little bit. But all they do every time they cut to her is her just going, hey, come on, guys, someone talk to me. And she just, I don't know, she sounds like she's like left out of the lunchroom table the way that she's talking. It doesn't sound like she's actually like worried about their safety. She's like, come on, guys, what's going on?
Guys, we need to wrap this up. I've got a boxing movie to go film. I'm feeling pretty good about my Oscar chances.
You guys aren't gonna... Are you guys talking about me being in next Karate Kid again? Oh, man.
She gave up her karate career and went to boxing, but then that didn't end so well.
The tragedy of Hilary Swank. Karate Kid to astronaut to boxer.
the last bit of like just science nonsense is Aaron Eckhart figures out a way that the unobtainium like absorbs heat, so it's basically a big solar panel, so they can use the heat of the core to power the ship. And I'm like, okay. Also, aren't you still in the outer core as it started spinning again? Isn't that causing some issues? Maybe it wouldn't.
Well, I mean, they show the shockwave. They show the thing. It wouldn't have been spinning out past the shockwave yet.
Okay. We're going very slow, but all right. So so basically this miracle of like, oh, this will get the power back on. We just have to change a couple of things to turn it into a big solar panel.
They do it to get the power back on, so that way they can like steer and see things. But they don't have engines, so they are just riding the shockwave the whole way up. And of course, the miracle of this movie, because we don't want to have to go through everything we just did in reverse, is that the shockwave's able to send them up at like 3 times the speed that it was before.
Yeah, but it doesn't actually solve the problem though, because we still get this awkward 16-hour later time jump in the middle of what's supposed to be a fast-moving part. And then they get to the bottom of the ocean and they're like, well, no one knows we're still alive because there's no comms, and like, how would they even find us? We wouldn't be giving off any signal that would be notable. So, I mean, I guess we're just dying.
Said all that we have is the ultrasonics. They can make them, as Hilary Swank said, burp. That's all they got.
But that makes the whales sing. And that's how they end up finding them. David J. Qualls gets the idea and comes running down the helicarrier. Or not the aircraft carrier. Helicarrier is Marvel. Yeah. The aircraft carrier. It's the whales! Find the whales! I want to mention a line though that stuck out to me. Is basically when they're looking and they're like, hey, these whales are doing stuff, but they're all a bit out of their usual range, but that's not that weird during events like this. What did you call it? An orbital wobble? Now, I want to call out this line because bizarrely, I think this is a real term, even though it sounds like the most made-up thing. Yeah. But the reason why I know this term is because it's used in a movie that I've not seen, but I've seen a clip and I've heard it talked about from the 5th Highlander. And that is a movie in our future over in the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We've not started the Highlanders yet, but we're going to get there. But they said orbital wobble, and I went, oh God. I just got chills because I know we're heading towards the orbital wobble nonsense of Highlander the Source. So excitement abounds.
I googled it, and literally all it is that Earth has a little bit of wobble on it, the rotation of its axis. I don't know how that relates to whales or Scottish samurais, but like, I'll take your word for it.
I mean, it's got nothing to do with Scottish samurais, but there's definitely planet stuff going on. And to be fair, I don't think they're talking about Earth in that movie, but I could be wrong.
Okay, I'll be honest. I apparently know nothing about the Highlander franchise, because if they're not even talking about Earth anymore, I don't know what's happening.
Oh, to be clear, the first movie is entirely on Earth. There's not talking, and it's not like the second movie being a dystopian film set in the future was a leap, because there's nothing like the first one's just set present day in like 1987 or whatever it was. Yeah. So.
That's anyway. Weird. All right, fair enough.
The core.
By the way, I couldn't stand it anymore. I did have to look it up.
Oh, what?
His name is Donald Joseph Qualls.
Donald J. Just Qualls. It's just Qualls. Everyone calm down. It's just Qualls.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Different. Very different.
Nah. I'm still going to call him David J. Qualls, though. It's just funny.
All right, that's fine.
It's become a bit now. That's the bit. So anyway, the movie ends with them lying there waiting to be picked up by the boats, and they're like, it's a shame because they've kept this whole mission a secret. It's a shame that no one will ever know what the other 4 guys died for and that they're heroes. And like, oh, it'd be a shame if someone leaked it out. And then the end of the movie is DJ Qualls get into a cyber cafe and leaking it. Why he needs the physical top secret folders next to him on the table as he's sending it out when he's got it on a CD, I don't know. But he pulls it out so he can stick his hot pocket on it. So
it's just to show that, like, oh, I stole these. Ha ha ha. I'm a trickster. Also, I understand. All right, you have this random Russian guy. You can easily say Serge is like, yeah, okay, he died doing whatever.
Whoa. Russian?
He spoke with a Russian accent, I'm pretty sure, didn't he?
He's French.
Is he French?
Yeah.
I could have sworn I heard Russian, but all right, fair enough.
He's
French.
constantly saying French things, and it's also
That's right. They say rouge, yeah.
and it's Serge, not Sergey.
That might be a problem with my subtitles. Either way, so yeah, he's French. You could say like, okay, yeah, he's smaller time, no problem. You have the guy who built Virgil, I'm blanking out his character's name, but regardless, Brass, that's it.
Brazelton, that's his the full title.
Very easy to remember. He was working out in the desert, like no one's seen him in years. You can absolutely just brush his death under the rug. A guy who was in the military, the commander, a little bit harder to brush under the rug, but like he was out on mission. Theoretically, he could have died from anything. World famous leading scientist guy who signs autographs. What was the cover story there for how this guy died?
Died on his way back to his home planet. That's the cover story.
All right. I didn't realize that Stanley Tucci played Poochie, but fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But regardless, you know, that's how the movie ends with like it goes to like a shot of like all of his lines spreading across. It's trying to show that like the data's going to like these different cities, and I'm like, okay, all right.
It's the end of the first Planet of the Apes, Dawn or Rise, whichever one that was. Dawn.
Well, the first of the modern ones, you mean? Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's different though, because this is supposed to be on his computer showing that the information is spreading. That's actually showing you a map, Indiana Jones style, of like showing you the trace of things.
Oh yeah.
But these are like, this is information. Like once it's on the internet, it's just kind of everywhere. Like it's just it's silly.
You can't control the net, man.
Is this trying to show where he's pinging his IP address to?
They specifically showed that he was based in California, and then like the lines going across the US were specifically saying like ABC News, NBC News. Like I think it was showing that these were the files being sent to the news organizations like directly. But yeah, at a certain point it's on the net. Like anyone can get it.
Yeah. I'll always pop though for titles that like whoosh past the camera, so the surround sound has it's coming from behind you onto the screen. I'm always a sucker for that, so I appreciate the flashy titles at the end.
Yeah, no, that I let those play out because I was like, I don't think there's a post credits, but they're showing enough pomp and circumstance here that I could believe it. I could believe there's like a tiny little credit here.
Oh yeah, the post credit scene that sets up the sequel. We got to go back to the core. For more.
I left my keys.
The core's slowing down again, but this time it's because I don't even have a funny end to that sentence.
You go the opposite way. You say like, yeah, but I thought we restarted the core. We did. It's spinning too fast now. We gotta slow it down.
Also, at one point they said that the core is bigger than Mars. Is that true?
That seemed wrong to me.
Because I know Mars is smaller than Earth, but I don't think it was that much smaller.
Size of Earth's core. All right. With a radius of 1,220 kilometers. Oh, wait, hold on. No, sorry. That's the inner core. 2,200. So 2,200 kilometers. Mars radius. 3,300. Yeah, no, nowhere close.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. And that was you including the outer core, because at least maybe you could have argued he meant, or like maybe he meant the outer core, but the inner core is smaller than Mars. But no, you checked the outer core, so no.
Yeah, it says liquid outer core about 2,200 kilometers. Now, okay, here's the thing: the number I'm getting says the outer core is 2,200 kilometers thick, and then the inner core is 1,200. If the outer core were only talking about just that, and then plus the inner core, that would work. That would actually be the size of Mars.
Well, it depends.
So, it's hard. I'm not sure. Let me see here. It says inner core. I'm just trying to find the core in general. Nothing's giving me just the core in general. I don't know.
Yeah, the inner core is definitely smaller than Mars, though, right? Like that's unquestionable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the inner core is absolutely smaller than that.
Okay.
The outer core begins. No, I think it might be accurate. I think based off what it's saying here, its inner core plus outer core is around 4,000 kilometers, or 3,500 at the very least, which is Mars.
All right. I mean, I knew Mars was smaller than Earth. I didn't think it was small enough to be smaller than the core. But...
Yeah, I always, maybe I'm just outdated. I always imagine the mantle being like this massive, massive thing inside Earth comparatively.
Yeah, I thought it'd be more mantle than core, but I mean, obviously,
Right.
I'm no scientist, so ignore any assumptions I'm making.
Yep. He still calls DJ Qualls David.
No, that's your name. That's David J. Qualls.
Of course.
David, what are you rating the core out of 10?
I think before I watched it this time, just based off memory, I would have come to a 7.5. I think I was I was not saying it was great, but I think I would still say it was very, very solidly in the good. Now I'm bouncing between basically the lowest possible 7 or 6.5. I do still think it is at that quality. I'm not going to say it's bad or mediocre. It's above the 5 pretty healthily. I think for me personally, because I do still have fun with this movie, I'm going to give it the 7. But I could see this being something where like all it's going to take is one like scandal with like one of the actors or something where I'm going to have an uncomfortability watching this movie, and that's going to be what dips it down to a 6.5.
The whole 0.5 down. This is. I'm fighting with a two score. I'm fighting between a 6 and a 5.5. Well, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm at the. It's watchable. It's fluff. It's got some nostalgia, maybe just because I saw it in at a certain point in my life, so I kind of associate a time with it, kind of thing. But it's a bit of a time capsule for the era that it came out in. But it's, I think it's just a bit serviceable and no more. But it's not a great example of a disaster movie, and it's not something that I think it feels all that special, regardless of how many good actors you might throw in there or whatever. So I gotta go with 6 out of 10. I'll say 6. I'll be slightly nicer and say 6 out of 10.
Okay. Sounds good.
Very watchable.
And then, does it make the cut?
It doesn't make the cut, no.
No, I wouldn't. I know when to pick my battles. This is not it. I will say this seems like pretty definitive cutting it close. Like you say, it's watchable, it's there, it doesn't feel like it's the worst possible thing. It straddles the line.
I guess. I think it's a low cutting it close, though. Like, I would be on the line of cutting it close to not making the collection, as opposed to being closer to the other end, which is making the collection.
I would be much more on the other side of that. Still under making the cut, but it would be closer to the upper side. So we'll just call it a split and say it's smack dab in the middle.
All right. Cutting it close. I suppose that's what we're going with. Now that, and we'll bring it into the core discussion. Next week on the show, we are continuing disaster season forward with a movie that came out about a year after this one, and that is The Day After Tomorrow. That's right, we're doing a Roland Emmerich disaster movie, which we've somehow, up to this point, avoided. So,
weird.
Yeah, we'll see you for that. The Ice Age is coming.
Is that what killed the dinosaurs?
I believe it is. According to a very smart Austrian man, I believe it is, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, obviously I haven't been part and parcel of those, but you and Tara did quite a few Roland Emmerichs over on the A's.
Well, Independence Day. I mean, you did Universal Soldier. That's not very disastery.
Yeah, I'm talking more the disaster ones he did, not the lower qualm ones. Independence Day, I swear, didn't you do Moonfall?
Yeah, we did Moonfall.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't want to, but Tara made a bit of a demand with that one for some reason.
Gotcha.
Anyway, that is the show, everyone. That's been the Collector's Cut. We'll see you next time for The Day After Tomorrow. You can support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership. Get access to the bonus ratings rundown segments and the bonus monthly show we do called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. If that sounds like fun, you can get that and support everything and help keep it all coming. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.